Yo, yo, yo. Can't hear you.
There we go. I had it muted while I was sitting here.
Attaboy.
Yeah. There we go. Perfect. Yeah. Good idea getting on a little bit early here. I saw you sent your link out a few minutes ago.
Yep. Thanks for getting out early. That's good. I know there were some folks that
Yeah.
were
No
dragging
worries.
in late.
I needed the prodding today. It's nice out here today. Finally, we got a heat streak, Matt. It's 20 degrees outside.
Oh, gee whiz. We got a cold streak. It's 45.
Daryl and I walked out yesterday about 5:30 out of the office. I'm like, man, it's warm out here because it went from 0 to 20, so it felt like it was like 80 outside.
Come out in this coat.
It was great. It was great. We'll wait for some people to stream in here.
We're excited about I'm excited about 65 and sunny over the weekend or next week. It's going to be a nice one. It's been kind of a bust week. We've had a lot of rain. I was looking at the Weather Channel. It looks like there's just big swath of rain and ice. It moves from Texas to the Carolinas all week long.
Yeah, they shut Austin down. It sounded like the other couple days ago.
Yeah, they've had a rough year.
So we're 32 today. It's supposed to be -1 on Friday, and then back to 29 and raining to 40 on next week. So we've been pretty lucky though. Kelvin Johnson was saying -25 tomorrow night here near Toronto. Polar vortex stuff.
He's a little further north than you are.
It's not much further north though, right? Toronto, when you think about it, they're even with Toronto's kind of right across.
Well, Kelvin always says like he's way north when he's talking. He's like it's Saskatchewan or something.
-25 tomorrow night here, Toronto polar vortex. Maybe Kevin, I don't know how far up north are you, Kevin? Are you in Toronto? Let's see what he says here.
Have you heard anything from the IBS show this week?
So I've just seen a lot of people speaking and so forth, right? There's Chris Gates. Hey there, I'm just a dude trying to get a home built. I've been following to see the status of lumber and how it might affect the local builders. I really appreciate all the information you share. Well, appreciate that, Chris.
Just for a little side note, Chris, lumber's not your problem.
Yeah, it's everything else, I think, right?
Yeah, it's just I'll give you a suggestion that I tell my lumber guys to make a counter offer. Don't be afraid if you're $40,000 away from your number. Don't be afraid to offer $40,000 less. These guys, home builders, have got more and more inventory coming on stream this month and next month than they have in a while. So I think there's going to be a little bit of inventory. So I think all you got to do is make an offer that's comparable to whatever an investor for a build to rent's going to offer, and you're probably going to get a deal.
Yeah, sir. Hello from icy Dallas, Richard Kavnar, Chris Gates in Southern Oregon. Hey, Chris. Yes, people are streaming in here. We had a pretty good. We were almost 50-50, Matt, on YouTube versus LinkedIn last week.
What now?
We had half the people were on LinkedIn, half the people were watching on YouTube. So the YouTube just keeps getting more and more.
And notice, what was the other two? Would you had it on? What else did you have it on? Because I saw there were only two links today.
So I had it on Twitter, LinkedIn,
YouTube.
two LinkedIns, and two YouTubes. My personal one, and then the company one.
Yeah, I've got several people that tell me that they do it on YouTube. So it's good that you're doing that.
I guess it's easier, right? It's easier to get on.
Yeah, if you don't have a LinkedIn account, you probably, or I guess that's the case, but anybody get on YouTube. But I don't know what the quality is. I guess the quality is about the same.
It should be about the same. YouTube just makes it easier to find it and log in. For some reason, the algorithm at LinkedIn sometimes makes it problematic to find. I don't know why. Not always.
Sometimes if I just go to your LinkedIn page, it's running live on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah.
I mean, without having to log in.
I have my page running below right now. That's where I put the comments in.
Good.
There's a little bit of a lag. but not much.
Hey, I want to ask Richard Kavnar. I know it's icy in Dallas, but what's this doing to job site passability and all that kind of thing going on? Is it holding things up, or obviously it is, but
they may have a little delay when we're talking here, Matt. And they'll catch up to us here. Not much one.
the reason I asked, I've had several people that are saying they expect to see some catch up from especially from the Dallas market after this week and last week. But there's probably they think they haven't been participating in the purchasing because the roads have been impassable and all that kind of stuff. But so I just wondered how much is left over coming from Texas, because that's kind of the big lick. When you take Florida, Texas, and California, you got 50% of the housing market, it seems like. But when Texas goes away, you can feel it.
Yeah, Texas always creates a giant sucking sound from everywhere in North America for fiber down there, doesn't it, Matt?
Yeah, and you don't really think about it, but it creates a big blowing sound when you can't get the stuff out of there either. Like
no doubt. No doubt. Well, I think we've got a good chunk of people now. Chris Gates just put now it's interest rates. I think you had a question. Did you ask Chris a question, Matt?
I thought the lumber wasn't his problem. He says now it's interest rates, but it'd be interesting since Chris is a shopper. How do you feel about it? Is 6% going to be an interest rate you can live with, or you're going to have something lower than that?
It's a good question. I saw a poll out somewhere today asking people where they would lock interest rates on, right? Oh, here we go. Richard Kavnar. Our job sites have mostly been closed. I hope I'm saying that right, Richard Kavnar. Our job sites have mostly been closed this week due to weather. Finally starting to thaw out today.
I'm assuming that's going to mean slush and mud for a few days before you can get fully back pouring footings and framing.
Yeah, generally it doesn't slow down very much where Richard's at. I don't think they generally are going all the time. Yeah, I know when I lived in Houston, whenever they got ice, which ice is obviously different, it shut the city down. Like
we get shut down. We get a forecast of a dusting, and we shut down schools for a week.
Yeah, and you guys plow with road graders too.
Yeah, tractors and plows.
You just polish the ice, is what you do.
They are motor graders. They're just these big old spider-looking things going down the interstate 8 miles an hour.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's kick it off, Matt. I think I'm glad you got me motivated to get on early, because I think it's important when you send out that link to everybody and they sign on, so they don't just see dead space there. We talk, and we got a good interaction going already and early on. So I appreciate you doing that. Welcome to Lunch with Lumbermen. Matt Lehman, Lehman's Lumber Guide and Ashley Buckle Materials Exchange, Chicago, Illinois. Glad you could be here. Had a great show last week, Matt. We had, like 150 people watching live, which is great. And then many more were watching after that. So, look at a lot of a different market since we talked last Thursday, right? We got, we kind of got your January chaos that you were talking about, right? In a way. So
I think that was the last week of it. It was interesting because we had down and up and sideways and not knowing what to do. It was certainly a chaotic month, but that's just the nature of just trying to figure out what you got and what are you going to do. What are you going to do next?
Yeah, no doubt. So we made a pretty good move in spruce pot. It seems like, and we'll jump over to your scouting report in a second. Let's just talk about a pretty good bump in spruce. Obviously, I'm always careful when I talk about futures because yes, they're related, but a lot of people don't trade them themselves. But futures got so far in front of everything, it was showing that it kind of pulled cash with it, we could say, right?
Yeah, I think before we got that rally, everybody's looking at futures going, well, what's this $90 premium? How can you justify that? It's certainly a good basis trade. We talked about basis trading, and the basis trade didn't really go anywhere for a few days, but I think it finally came into about $50, so it's still worked a little. But it's interesting. You go from 2 weeks ago or maybe 3 weeks ago to last week to this week. It's been like a yo-yo, kind of like the
Yeah.
old flyback thing. But because
Yes.
last week it was extremely positive, and everybody that had wood that was bullish on the market had taken a position. It was speculatively long, and I think the industry got speculatively lightly long. And now this week we got a little bit of buyer's remorse setting in because you can still buy. I saw spruce available today from I think West Fraser was at 454 again, so we're down about $20 from where they got to their high mark. And wholesalers have got a lot of wood. One guy, I was going to read a quote from one of my scouting team guys. I'll read you. I'm going to read you what he said. I don't know if he's on or not, but it was interesting that he said let me scroll down and read it. I don't want to be completely wrong in this. Sorry for the late response. Blah blah blah. Take our time. Builders appear to be holding orders very close and tight to their chest right now. I know that in my market, Central Florida, there's a lot of dirt being pushed and infrastructure being laid by multiple builders. I expect this to translate into orders in the near future. My feeling is that builders will be looking to adjust their strategies, and we're in a holding pattern until they formalize their plans. And that's the same kind of thing I'm hearing from the out of the IBS show. A couple of guys have said that over the last 2 weeks, the traffic has picked up. Builders seem to be a little more. They're not overly optimistic, but they're not nearly as pessimistic. But it's kind of like they're getting ready. But it's like this guy said that it's almost like they've got orders to hold them as close to the vest, but they don't want to give them out and say, go buy a bunch of lumber for me because they're still afraid they're going to get canceled on. Because another guy was telling me that he's getting cancellations like crazy day after day up in your neck of the woods probably because of weather. But it's still we're still not going in the same direction with everything. It's still kind of befuddling.
Yeah. I mean, I know my head surely was there. Like, as we all do being in this industry, I was so negative up until a month ago. And I had a hard time I think a lot of these builders did what they had to do, at least short term, to whether it was buybacks, buy downs, or lowering some prices. Now, I don't know where we're going to go from there, and we're probably still not going to be at the same housing start rate we were last year on single family, but multifamily is staying good and rates continue to come down. So, I mean, it certainly is setting up to get really interesting. Again, I don't know how much better it is, Matt, but I think.
But if you think about this, I was, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about builders saying that they were going to be down 40 and 50% this year for starts. So if you're only down 20%, that's a pretty drastic improvement from what your worst case scenario was. And I think that's where we are. It's not that we're not going to do 1,000,007 houses, but we're not going to do 900,000 starts either. So somewhere in between is going to be good news.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, I was talking to a few people yesterday. These big companies that have consolidated, and we talk about this all the time, even with the business they have sold going forward, they don't keep the same inventory on the ground that they normally had in the past, right? And that's due to cash flow. It's due to who pulls the strings on who stores, who buys what now. One of my buddies was a big buyer. Like, he's buying other things besides lumber now, specialty stuff, and they've moved. I mean, just the way it is, right?
Yeah, the nail and the sheetrock and the roofing guy quits, and all of a sudden you get that job too.
Yeah, exactly. So, the one positive that I saw this week is, and it's a slight positive, the market, I was like, man, is this just going to be a spruce rally, right? Is this just going to be a spruce rally? Because if that is, but we did get a little bit. I saw, Southern pine is still really undervalued. And I saw a comment on Twitter today where somebody made a comment, maybe some people will start switching pine and spruce to the truss plants because it's getting such a wide spread there. So I think pine, especially 4-inch, got a little bit of play. And finally, I saw that, look at OSB was sitting there doing nothing for
just
months,
begging to get bought.
Just nothing. And I think we at least got the low trade prices done, and there was some buying on OSB, which is better. It's not enough to really bump it that much, but enough to bleed over out of spruce and trade a little bit. So it'll be interesting to
Well, there's
see.
also another thing too. This I was just thought about this when you said that. I was asking a guy from a buying group yesterday. They got a show coming up in late February, and he said most of his dealers were not overbought. And I said, "Are they holding out for the show?" And he said, "No, probably by the time the show gets here, at the end of February, they'll be all covered up." But those buying shows are typically very good for OSB. They take lots of volume. They sell hundreds and hundreds of trucks of those things because they're trying to get in the raffle for a shotgun or a Harley or a camper or something like that. But they got to have something to buy. But I wouldn't be surprised if late February we see a big push in just from the buying shows.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that. I mean, look, you asked what I saw from the show. Like, when I just troll through and see the different speakers, it seems like I've never been out to that show, so I don't know exactly what all goes on there. It's big. It's big for everybody in the building side of things, right, Matt?
Yeah, and the format's kind of weird because you don't really have a chance to mingle with a bunch of people. They have a room where if you're a vendor and you in a builder wants to talk to you about your product, you make an appointment to have a one-on-one visit with them for like 15 minutes. And the room's full of like 100 guys that have that, or representatives that have their product. But it may be software, it may be engineering, it might be HR, it might be. But I noticed there didn't seem to be a whole lot of lumber people there. They were more doing the other things other than housing. So that might be a good spot for you guys and myself even to plug in next year and try to get some appointments.
So, Matt, one thing I was thinking about last night is, so we had a few announcements from some of the Western mills last week. We know some of the log costs are slightly down, but they're still not down that much. We know cost of production is still a lot different than it was 2 or 3 years ago. Do you expect to see any more announcements from any Pacific Northwest or mills?
I think we've gotten locked into believing that the only way we're going to get curtailments is that we're going to get some sort of forewarning when it happens or notice when it happens. But I've heard from this week that there's been curtailments out in the Pacific Northwest and the Western U.S. dry fir, green fir, been curtailments, and some in the South just curling back a couple of hours here and there. But they're not major curtailments, but they're enough to just be able to get a little bit off. You take 5 or 10% off or something like that, and it gets it just makes it more tolerable. But I think we may not see announcements, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to see curtailments. If the mills don't want to get panic buying done, they just want to get a little shortage, let the market run on them, and keep their order files out with a little thinner production. I think that's more likely a case than seeing some major announcements, because I mean there's really nobody left that can make. There's not a whole lot of major announcements you can make. I mean, Canada's kind of running out.
Yeah, I mean that's what I would think too, right? It never ceases to amaze me how I can be surprised how people can still come out with announcements, right? That's why.
All it takes is like last week that the Canfor announcement. If I'm not mistaken, this Canfor announcement was all stud mills. Is it 3 stud mills?
Well, no, I think it was one of their dimension mill, Chetwin, I think, and then
you guys may know. I don't know for sure.
And then I thought it was Chetwin, one of their dimension mills, and then they talked about some temporary stuff at Houston, which is one of their big dimension mills. I believe.
so they could regroup and do the whole thing bigger. It's going to be by 2025, but that's a long way off by the time you redo a whole mill. But
well, let's Matt. Do you want to bring up? I'll have Nick bring up the guide real quick. Is that cool? What do you want?
Sure,
Let's go down and look at the 12-month forecast and take a look at it real quick.
It's actually the 12-month forecast. You said that last week, but it's been converted to a 5-week forecast on the scouting report. The full 12 months is on the forecast. Which I had some members that were complaining about me giving away too much information, so I had to.
I got you. Don't worry. Yeah, I got that. Makes absolute sense. I think Nick's just bringing it up right now. See if we can find it here. Yeah. In the meantime, the shows though, Matt, I just couldn't get myself to go out to Vegas, even though it's probably been great. Is this the right one we want to bring up, Matt, or are we going to bring a different one up?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, there. Neil Bill has just said Canfor was random, Sinclair was studs.
How about Toco? Were there was Toco studs too?
I don't know. I thought Tokel was studs, but
Sinclair was it. Sinclair was the mill that I was thinking about. They had three stud mills.
yeah, that's correct. That was Sinclair. Yeah. There you go, Matt. So what do we read into this
Um,
in week 5 here?
I was kind of looking back further about where it looked like it kind of was off track a little bit, but it seems like the FTPs this year have been running where the FTPs occurred. A couple times we've had some accelerations rather than reversals, and I think that's what's going to happen right here. We got an upward move at week number 5. That's the FTPs this week, and it projects another rally into like week number 11 or 12. You can see where they kind of start to round off there. So I think there's still some upside, at least in probably for the next 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. We could see some upside follow through, just as people with wood trying to, goose the market, keep it up, and the guys that have the wood not making it really cheap. But after that, it's I think it's questionable. I think that March is going to be a pretty significantly down month. We could have a pretty nasty drop in March because everybody's, unless the builders come off the pot and start letting go of some starts and some framing packages, these guys, the market could potentially be really overbought. You got a lot of euro coming up, and there's still, even today, there's still mill specials with multiple carloads, multiple truckloads of oddball things that are showing up, and to have a market that just moved $100. You would think of the week that it just finished move $100, you wouldn't see so much extra wood around, but apparently there's a lot of wholesale wood that's bought, spec wood is bought, and when the Canfor announcement came out, just being that it was Canfor and being a big name, everybody says that they wait for West Fraser Canfor to make an announcement, say okay, there's the big one. So that was probably even though it was just a 2-week deal, it wasn't going to start until April, so it wasn't even going to affect us right away. But everybody still reacted and probably overbought a little bit or added to some position just because it was the nature of who it was that made the announcement. So I kind of think we're in at least adequately bought, but potentially by the end of this week and next week, we'll probably market to be overbought.
Well, so what I'm seeing, Matt, is if there's still some stuff that's well priced, it's getting picked up. Like and if there's some stuff that's, how can I put it? Last week's price plus, it's sitting right, but today we had people coming in, and if they were pricing some inventory without a bunch of extra markup on it, right, it was moving, and it was and people were doing it. But if it was replacement cost today, it wasn't moving as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's significant. I heard from a wholesaler broker earlier in the week, and he said that he's getting firm offers for last week's prices.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what the number was. It's just saying, I'll take what you have at last week's prices, and they said they were taking them, and that's a $50 counter when you figure what print did for the week. Basically, a $50 counter off of giving it right back the first week out of getting the rally and giving it right back. So that's not really bullish either.
Yeah, I mean, so the market surprisingly is still kind of plodding along. Look at it's the best move we had in 6 months, right? So it gets us all excited when it happens, right?
And the thing is, especially when you've been looking for it for 4 months.
Yeah, yes. You and I have been looking for it for a while, right?
I know. About it forever.
Well, what else do you want to talk about today, Matt? I'm not as prepared as normal here.
I mentioned yesterday I had a builder dealer roundtable discussion on Friday.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
That was really good. We had 55 participants, and about 20 of them were actively talking and communicating back and forth. The others were just kind of listening and might have been on the phone or couldn't get live. But very good turnout. And I told them what I was going to look for was I didn't want to superimpose my thoughts on them, so I was just going to listen to what they had to say. So after an hour, I said, here's what I'm hearing from what you guys are saying. Did you feel like you're well prepared for probably inventory through March, at least through February, but probably through March, some into April. Most everybody's prepared for a good February, but beyond February, without exception, they said with 100% of the people, they said they expected things are going to get worse after February. So that kind of tells you that that's where their planning is. If they're saying that's what their expectation is, that's probably where their plans are too. So the market's probably adequately bought. I'm guessing through, or not guessing, but surmising, probably through the middle of March, which means the end of February they've got to make a decision to buy again or reduce inventory from there. So it's going to be a tricky spot at the end of this month. So, but their expectations are that business is going to get slower and they won't have to make another major buy till maybe later in spring. I've heard a lot of talk about like a late spring rally, and I think that's a good likelihood. Likely when you get a late market run like we did this year, instead of preparing at the beginning of November, you wait till the beginning of January to make your preparations for spring, and we get a good nice rally then. Typically, a late start means a late finish. So I'm kind of looking for this market not to peak out until May. So we got some sloppiness here, but I think the surprise is going to be that builders aren't going to do 60% or 40%. They're going to do more like 20% less than they did last year.
That's a good point. One thing I'm seeing, just maybe you and I talked about, Matt, and it started out last Thursday, Friday. Multifamily people, there's probably a handful, called me just to say, hey, what do you think? I don't know if they did it. What do you think about long-term purchasing? I'm like, well, what do you mean by long-term? How far out, right? So, because some were March. I'm like, well, March, if you're buying for March, that's cash market, right?
Yeah.
But some wanted to go all the way out and said their builders that are more removed from the purchasing every day, or they've outsourced it to these people that I was talking to, wanted to lock out. They don't want to go through some of the same stuff they went through in the last 2 years, and I don't think we're going to. But nonetheless, they wanted to go out and lock stuff out into September and October of next year. I'm like, well, that's.
Yeah. And I know some people that are large contractor yards that have done that. They did it like fourth quarter last year. They bought wood for September this year. They got it on the yard already. So that's how it's not that you can't do it, but if you can lock in the numbers, there's nothing wrong with these prices right here for long term, for as far as the builder's concerned, because the numbers pencil out, but especially for multifamily. But I've seen lots of multifamily jobs that getting tabled because of just interest rates and not necessarily the cost of lumber, but just the overall picture. They think it's going to get better. But that's the last report I saw. The multifamily was expected to be down pretty significantly by the end of the year. So it almost looks like it's overbought with what we got. Overbuilt with what we've got under construction right now.
Yeah, well, certainly right now, currently, it's still the bell of the ball, so to speak. Right, it's still moving pretty good.
Yeah, it seems like it feels to me though that there's more interest in build to rent homes than there is in apartments. So I wouldn't be surprised at the second half of the year we don't see an inversion between multi and single family because of that single family.
Well, I know one thing I am hearing is everybody, even people that I know that can't sell their house right now, are just saying, "Well, I'll rent it then." If they have okay,
yeah,
well, sooner or later. Yeah, it's like everybody tells me that. Oh, that's great. Well, listen, Matt, I think that's a pretty good. It'd be interesting to see what we get together, what you and I are talking about next week. After we've gone through this little bitty bump up, it should be pretty cool. What else do you have coming up as far as roundtables go? Do you have anything else coming up in the future?
We're going to do the roundtable on a monthly basis. If you get anybody that wants to, I misspelled scouting report there on my thing. Is anybody that wishes to participate in the roundtable has to be a subscriber to the scouting report or the market forecast, and you can sign up for that at the laymansguide.com/scouting report. And we'll get you hooked up with that. But it's very informational. It's the communion, the community, the relationships that you guys are building with each other. It's pretty cool when you watch over the course of an hour how people they get comfortable with each other, and people they haven't talked with before, they start opening up to each other, and it's really informative. I haven't seen anything like that. We're in an industry that everybody's kind of protective and thinking they've got some kind of secret they don't want to share, but then you get out and realize everybody's doing exactly the same thing. And you start talking about what's going on in different regions of the country, and you realize that what's going on in your market is not the same as in everybody else's market, and your conditions, your situations might be different than somebody else's. But just hearing what's happening in other parts of the country and other sectors is really very helpful for everybody. So I invite you all to come check that out.
Yeah, and Matt, you said they just go to Layman's Guide. That's LaymansGuide.com. And then
you can just do that, and you can look for the scouting report, or you can sign up for a free 2-month trial if you just go to laymansguide.com. So either way is fine.
Richard Kavanaugh said, in Dallas-Fort Worth, our multifamily clients are mostly holding off until second half of this year, hoping for lower prices and lower interest rates. We have 1,800 units currently under construction. Just started 317-unit project, closed last week at another 84 units. We don't think we'll see any more starts until May or June.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah. Good information. Good information. All right, Matt. Well, we'll kind of leave it at that, and we'll look forward to doing this next week again.
Sounds good, guys. Have a great day. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
See you.